right. Welcome to the Rainbow Pill, a subsidiary of the massive media conglomerate known as Gluten Free, spelled like galoot, a clumsy stumbler who wanders into situations. That's what I'm going to be doing in this video today. We are going to talk about something controversial, difficult to talk about, but important, and that is homosexuality. We are the Rainbow Pill. Obviously, that rainbow in our name has an important connotation in this day and age. Unfortunately, it is associated with homosexuality instead of its biblical significance. Also, I would say the third maybe significance of a rainbow is pot of gold related, leprechaun related. I don't know much of the history behind that, but beyond children's understanding. But yeah, we are going to talk about homosexuality in today's world. Is it a cause for despair? Is the world a cause for despair when it comes to homosexuality? First, I will try to identify. First, we will just say that I have a lot of love for all homosexual people in the world, but I do think it is wrong. And I think you can, obviously, I come from my Christian Catholic perspective, and clearly it's sinful and wrong from that perspective. But even further, I'm going to try and just identify the fact that it is an inversion of what is natural, or that word natural might be troublesome, but of what is of human nature, I guess. And so it's not just a deviation of human nature, but it is a complete inversion. It looks at human nature and it flips it 180 degrees opposite, and then applies it to human nature. And so that is kind of the root of why I think that homosexuality is wrong. And I'm going to talk more about it. So one thing that I tend to notice is that there is this kind of prevailing philosophy that led mainly to a lot of the inroads or the initial battles won, perhaps, by the homosexual community. And one of the major rallying cries for that was that it's not a choice, that you are born gay or homosexual, and it's something you discover. And I think that there has kind of been a counterexample in people who have lived a gay or homosexual lifestyle and returned to a heterosexual lifestyle. And that is an interesting case that I think has completely gone unaddressed by major pop culture, major homosexual recognition in the world, in the country specifically. And it, at the very least, I think it calls into question, even if you accept that you are born a certain way, doesn't it still mean that some people may be confused, and some people may be choosing, as certainly it would be possible. And that's just something to definitely take into consider, because it seems like we've all accepted this basic assumption as a given that you're born homosexual or not, and it's not a choice. I happen to think that it is, a very appealing choice for some, and an addictive choice for some. Now, I'm going to make a major analogy here. I have been addicted to pornography. I see that as being very similar to homosexuality. Again, it's still taking this life-giving act of sexual intercourse and completely inverting it, turning it into, what it shouldn't be. And I was addicted to that. This is a really sad thing, but I don't know if I'm ever going to how can I put this delicately? You know, come to sexual release in marriage more than I ever have outside of marriage, masturbating to pornography. That's a very sorrowful thing to me, because that is the act of the inversion. You know, what sex is meant for is creating life. And I am deep in the red in terms of sexual acts that have not been dedicated towards life. So that's tough. But it's the same type of idea. That's why I don't see, you know, homosexual people negatively at all, any more than I saw myself as addicted to porn. It's where I went to for sexual gratification. You know, there were, you know, community around my form of sexual gratification. My arousal was predicated on a certain form of sexual gratification. And it's all those same types of things hold true when you go down a homosexual route of life. And yeah, so I've begun to recognize it in that context. I think too that because homosexuality starts off with this inversion of what is, you know, the natural order, it is, and I never liked thinking of marijuana as a gateway drug, but I kind of see homosexuality as like a gateway rotting of the mind and morality. It's like once you can just flip this natural order on its head, then the sky is the limit for what else, for whatever kind of foundation you had in your life, for just upending it. And when you're living life where there's no up or down or right or wrong, you can go further and further into, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, chaos or evil or disorder. And so to identify what up and down is, what good and bad is, what right and wrong is in your life is extremely important. And if you undermine that from the, you know, something that is, as we've learned with this kind of sexual revolution, so to speak, is very important to people's identity. When you undermine your idea of right and wrong with something core to your identity, the sky is the limit again for what can, you know, be wrong, introduced into your life that is also wrong. So there's that. There's a unique movement where gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, etc. is all joined together, to which it's, to me, some of those groups are even opposed to some of their own group members, shall we say. I'm not even going to dive fully into the trans movement in this episode. I specifically want to just talk about homosexuality. The two are different, right? The one thing I will say, and maybe as an introduction into future, you know, kind of trans discussions, is, you know, at first, this is just accepting some of the assumptions that are made by these communities, but then asking a question. It's like, I'm going to go on your turf, but then I have a question for you on your turf. And it's like, if you have a young child who you somehow see or sense certain affectations of that child towards a gay or transsexual life, how do you decide? And it almost seems like the fad was, oh my gosh, my kid is homosexual. But now it's become, oh my gosh, my kid is transsexual. And where do you draw that line? It's how do you determine, oh, my boy is playing with dolls. Now you have to make a decision, which I don't think this is valid at all. I think all boys can play with dolls, have a great time and enjoy. And it means nothing as to the natural order of life. But assuming that someone thinks that indicates, or your son says, I think I'm a girl, Dad. Probably the next sentence he says is, I think I'm a dinosaur too. But if he says, I think I'm a girl, well, are you then going to begin to make assumptions about his sexual proclivities? Or at that certain time, are you saying, no, son, I just think you're gay? Or no, son, okay, you're a boy. Or no, son, you really are a girl. I guess you'd be saying yes, son, in that sense. There's some unique contradictions within the LGBT community, and that's just something I want to identify, and feel free to poke holes in it. Remember, this show is about being a galoot, so I kind of hide behind that mantra to stumble into things that I may be completely wrong on, and please feel free to correct me, but these are just some of the thoughts I have.
It can be hard. Just remember to keep trying.
Going back to the rainbow, I'd really like to reclaim that rainbow for Christianity, for the symbol given to Noah after the flood, basically saying, I'm not going to wipe out humanity again, no matter how bad it gets. Now, I really see that as a call from God for us to create a world that is not worth annihilating. And so it's almost like the rainbow has been chosen to proudly display by those who use it as such, that we can completely subvert God, and there's not going to be any consequences. And I don't think there should be consequences. God doesn't think there should be consequences, in terms of Noah flood level consequences. At least maybe he does think that, but he's not going to do it. But what it is a call for renewal to that world that God is calling us to prepare. No more floods. You have to do it yourself now, humanity. And so hopefully that's what this is. Hopefully that little rainbow pill, maybe consider swallowing today, where it's like, hey, this homosexuality stuff might actually be a bad thing. I encourage you to look. I haven't quite figured out the technology of bringing in screens to this. Just haven't had the time. But there's some great videos of people who were former homosexuals who are no longer, and have gone on to have families and develop their faith and have really meaningful stories that I encourage you to listen to. It's very powerful stuff. I think that's about it for me in homosexuality. I encourage you to share this video if you feel comfortable doing so. I understand you might not. I encourage you to give me some criticism. Please like and subscribe. And hopefully here's to learning more about life. Thanks.